and the world.
Guess it's just because you're different somehow.
It's Radio DePaul.
You hear me?
Chicago's College Connection.
Welcome back to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. We just finished wrapping up some NFL talk, NFL playoffs and Bears, of course, but now we have Bruce Levine, a very famous Chicago baseball writer, maybe the best Chicago baseball writer in town right now. Bruce, are you with us?
I'm here. Yeah, glad to be with you.
All right, terrific. And let's dive into some Chicago baseball. But first, if you want to tell the listeners who haven't heard of you, I'm shocked if they haven't heard of you yet, but tell the listeners what you've done in your career maybe and where you're at right now.
Well, I've been covering sports in Chicago since 1980, and I've worked for many different people, but I worked for 22 years for AM 1000 radio, which was originally WCFL, and eventually it was Evergreen, which was the old Loop that turned eventually into WMVP, which turned back into ESPN in 1998. I left there in October of 2013 and joined WSCR The Score. I've written for numerous publications, including the Sporting News, and been writing for the Cub publication Vineline for the last 20 years with my partner Joel Berrig. Written many different articles, television, so vast career, but my concentration mostly has been on baseball over the last 30 years, and in particular over the last 6 or 7.
All right, terrific. And unfortunately, we don't have the ESPN 1000 music that they used to play for you at the station, but we do have some nice White Sox questions to open it up. Looking at the moves that the White Sox have made to start off, especially before we dive into the Tanaka situation with the Cubs and the White Sox, maybe the bidding war going on, trading Addison Reed for Matt Davison with the Diamondbacks, the young third baseman, getting Jose Abreu, and also Adam Eaton from the Diamondbacks as well. What are your thoughts on the White Sox going a younger movement here and not quote-unquote rebuilding, according to the White Sox upper management?
Well, the White Sox had no choice but to trade for and garner as many young people from other organizations and international players as they could. Their minor league system has not produced a lot of position players. They've been very good about producing pitchers, but position players have been few and far between. So the White Sox way of competing and rebuilding over the last 14 years since Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams have been running the team has been trading their good young players or trading veterans for other people's young players, and they've been very successful at it. Now the White Sox are much more involved in spending money in the minor for the draft and for international players. For many years they did not, and they put it all toward the major league team. So it's going to be interesting to see how this new young White Sox team works out, and would be certainly a real boost to either the Cubs or Sox if they got Tanaka. That'd be a game changer for both teams in a lot of ways.
No, absolutely. You know, we mentioned obviously the youth movement going on with the White Sox, but two head-scratching moves this offseason was re-signing bringing Paul Konerko back, and also Tyler Flowers. Konerko, obviously the White Sox legend. White Sox fans obviously admire him, but really doesn't really seem to have it anymore. And Flowers just looks lost out there. What do you think about those two decisions?
Well, the Konerko situation was entirely up to Paul Konerko and owner Jerry Reinsdorf, and Jerry felt that Paul, over his 15-year career with the White Sox, had earned the right to say when is going to be when. Now, on the other hand, General Manager Rick Hahn did tell Konerko that he was going to be a part-time player and that he would be there as also a guy to help people like Abreu and some of the other young players learn their trade and be a leader for him as the captain of the team. So, if it was up to all the other White Sox officials, they would have probably tried to find some way not to bring Konerko back, but they're not going to go up against Jerry Reinsdorf, who's one of the most loyal people in all of sports. And, you can say that the move maybe was a little bit of a mismove because he is past his prime, way past his prime, but that's how Jerry is. He's a loyal person. With the Flowers, he's still not arbitration eligible. They do not have another replacement Fegley is not the replacement for the everyday catcher on the team, it appears right now. So they went with what they had, and they'll pay him a little bit more than a minimum, and that'll be it. But the White Sox, excuse me, are out there looking for catchers, and they're a premium that's very difficult to acquire.
Yeah, and you were talking about the White Sox looking to hopefully get another catcher as well. They got Adrian Nieto in the Rule 5 draft, and you were looking at they were looking at Jose Lobaton from the Rays. I saw that rumor in MLB Trade Rumors, and that went swiftly away. So they brought back Tyler Flowers, which I don't really agree with. But again, you don't want to go with the younger Fegley right away. So bringing back Tyler Flowers was the solid move to go with. Now, as you were talking about it, the Tanaka situation with the Cubs and the White Sox, and you brought it up on Twitter a lot here the past couple of weeks, the bidding war that could be going on here in Chicago, again, between the two, the North Side and the South Side rivals. What's been going on of late with the Tanaka situation?
Well, Tanaka went back to Japan, to the best of my knowledge, and there were 8 or 9 teams I've been able to identify that talked to him or talked to Casey Close. I guess the Angels complained about not seeing him in their offices, but there are 8 or 9 teams that I can identify. If I'm throwing Toronto in, it's 9 teams that are serious bidders for Tanaka, and Tanaka's going to get, he's going to get probably an average of probably $18 to $20 million a year times 6, and it's going to keep getting bid up. And teams like the White Sox and Cubs, if they're going to stay in it, let's be honest, they have to outbid the other teams. If the pitcher and the agent want all the money and they want the highest amount, then the Cubs and White Sox have a real chance. More so the Cubs, because they've already been out there stating that they're not going to get outbid. So, but the Dodgers, after spending $200 million on Kershaw, it's not going to be easy. I mean, they have plenty of money, but they've already set the bar at $30 million a year for Kershaw. And that being the case, the price of poker for Tanaka has not gone down. The serious bidders are certainly the Cubs, the Dodgers, the Yankees, Angels, and Giants. The White Sox will have a point where they'll say we can't do that, and that might be right at $100 million. And this appears to be going up way above $100 million right now.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously the Cubs pursuing Tanaka, quite a bit. But looking at the pitching prospects they have right now, after Samardzija, a solid year in the strikeout department. Obviously, the ERA was a little high, and didn't have quite the year that I think Cubs fans were hoping in terms of turning into that ace. Do you see the Cubs looking to bring him back and making him a part of the future, or are they going to move on from him?
That's a great question right now, because he's got 2 years of arbitration left, and they've been trying to sign him over the last year, maybe 14, 15 months. The contracts that he and his agent feel are just not really what they want to sign. The money would be, the offer in, early fall was 5 years, around $55 million. And, that's the average price of the contract is, about $1 million, about $2.5 million left in Edwin Jackson. And you hate to compare the two, because Edwin Jackson's pitched in the big leagues for 10 years, but, stuff-wise and future-wise, Samardzija and the agent feel that they are not going to settle for that kind of money. So if the deal doesn't change from the Cubs, he's going to get traded. And he'll probably be traded sometime between spring training and July. And it just depends on what type of prospects they can build into a trade that makes sense for them and another team. A lot of teams like Jeff Samardzija, a lot. But as you said, he still has something to prove. He 200 innings, 200 strikeouts. That's excellent, and he's come a long way in a couple of years as a starting pitcher. But he had a 5.5 ERA after the All-Star break last year, and that's a concern. So he's still building his confidence in all of his pitches. He's still building his resume of repertoire of pitches. I think he is going to be an excellent 2 or 3 starter and be a 15 to 18 game winner on a good team. And I think other teams feel that way. And if they do, I think they'll be willing to give up some prospects for Jeff Samardzija.
I'm sure Cubs fans are excited to hear that about Samardzija. But again, I've also seen some stuff on MLB Trade Rumors about talking about if the Cubs do not get Tanaka, that they'll be going in on Irvin Santana and Ubaldo Jimenez. So, what's your take on that? If you've heard any other things,
I don't see it unless they're. I think the Cubs would be in on 1 or 2 of those guys if they don't get Tanaka. If they'll take a short-term deal, the Cubs are not going to give either one of those pitchers, 4 or 5 year deals. It just doesn't work into their plan of where they're going right now, and they need to start building their cachet of young pitching. And they have T.J. Edwards who's coming along and Pierce Johnson, but after that, a couple other Latin pitchers, they don't have a real lot. They just have to continue to build their inventory of young pitching, and if they can do that, and they can get Vizcaino back from injury, and he pitched well during the winter, that's where the team is. That's where the team is going to turn the corner. Until you see the Cubs building, an inventory of 8, 9, 10 starting pitching candidates who can really throw the ball, they're not going to be serious contenders. I don't care how many home runs Baez hits or Bryan hits or Soler. It's not going to matter. It's all about pitching, and the Cubs they're on their way with some very excellent young players like the ones I mentioned. But that's not going to be the final piece of the puzzle. The final piece of the puzzle will be identifying pitching and developing it, and that appears to be 2 or 3 years away.
One last quick wrap-up question here, Bruce. Any thoughts on the new Cubs mascot, Clark the Cub?
Well, you know what? I'm going to take the opposite view. I'm going to say I like it for some other reasons. I don't like the timing of it, because if I'm a Cub fan, I say you're giving me a mascot when I'm looking for competitive players. I think if I'm a season ticket holder or a longtime Cub fan, I'm angry about just looking at that from the periphery. But I think a mascot is a good thing for marketing. It's a good thing for helping develop a young group of fans. And from the marketing phase, a mascot goes out. I don't want him on the field during games. I don't want him in the stands,
Right.
But from a marketing perspective, where he goes out to the hospitals and he's a representative that makes sick young kids in hospitals happy, and goes out there on events that they have and parades around for the young kids. I think there's a place for it. I honestly do, but it certainly isn't on the field or on a dugout during a game.
So you're saying you're not a fan of the Philly Fanatic?
Well, he's excellent at what he does. I mean, I always found him entertaining. Him and the Chicken, I think, were at the very top of the rung of mascots. But I'm not a mascot type guy. I think they're a marketing tool. I don't like them on the field. I don't like young people on the field throwing things into the stands during, in between innings. I think that field is importantly sacred for the players that play on it, and it's something that people respect. So I don't look at it as a marketing tool during a baseball game. And that's the same way I look at mascots. I think there's a place for it, and if the Cubs use it properly, I'm behind them 100%.
That's a great point. Bruce Levine, we really appreciate having you on, and you brought up some great points, and we hope to have you back on talking some baseball in the near future.
Anytime, gentlemen. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Again, that's Bruce Levine.